audio stories between stops. Hello, this story is for everyone. There are no shouts and screams or things that go bonk in the night, and it's called You'll Like It. A full month after they had moved next door, Jeremy and Monique were invited to dinner by the new neighbours. Their welcoming gifts, Monique's bouquet of roses with Jeremy's bottle of expensive but impressive Cloudy Bay wine, were offered through the fumble of handshakes and greetings and tentative kisses. Although quite subtle, Monique still noticed Giselle, while smiling gratefully, held the flowers at arm's length before placing them at the back of the hall table. Jeremy's wine, after a cursory glance from Paul, was banished to the floor at the foot of the same table. Homemade lemonade. Paul's invitation from behind a glass jug of what looked like washing up water did not impress. Sunday lunch for Jeremy was wine time. Absolutely pure. Paul had not waited for a reply, and Jeremy watched the washing up water slowly fill a glass. We grow our own lemons, added Giselle, and purify our own water. The back of Jeremy's neck began to tingle, a lifelong prompt to start worrying. Growing lemons in Chiswick and having a private waterworks he considered genuine reasons to look more cautiously at the new arrivals. They had moved from the seaside to London because of the pollution, Paul explained, as Giselle began serving the lunch. Living on the coast was no longer possible. Whenever Giselle went swimming, she got a rash. With all the passing tankers, the beach stank of diesel. The tide deposited more rubbish on the sand than in the local tip. The village was polluted with tourists, and they had an insoluble problem with their cesspit. Jeremy took only a sip of the lemonade, fortunately, but it was enough. Pure acid cleaned his teeth, shriveled his tongue, scorched the inside of his cheeks, and started a gurgle of rebellion in his stomach. Government's not bothered about the coast, Paul explained, between slurps of the acetic acid. London has all the resources being cleaned up. Pollution controls, Clean Air Act, and Giselle drained the last of her lemonade. Did you know there are salmon in the Thames? Jeremy searched for scorch marks on her lips or smoke rising from her ears. People usually do it the other way round. Monique's voice had moved up an octave, the price for finishing the lemonade, to escape the pollution by going to the coast. Big mistake. Paul stood up to serve the starters from the tray. Apart from all the other problems, they will be flooded. Global warming, seas are rising. Giselle added her dose of gloom as Jeremy's starter slid into his place. A cuddle of unrecognized colour bits waited for his attention in the centre of a brown paper plate. His glance at Monique confirmed that she was also in the same state of puzzlement. You'll like them. They're all eco. Paul smiled gleefully and shoveled some of the purple bits that looked like rabbit's kidneys into his mouth. Not a good start. It annoyed Jeremy to be told what he would like and dislike. Also, eco and bio were two religions he had discarded for the sins of a normal, unhealthy, and tasteful life. They were beans from the slopes of Mount Kilimanjaro, frontline troops against flu, it was explained. Cautiously munching on one of the little purple buggers, Jeremy checked his body clock. Yes, it was June, not a month known for supporting coughs, high temperatures, and aching limbs. You've not had the jab. It was not a question, it was an accusation, directed at him by the end of Paul's knife. No, Jeremy had not had the jab, mainly because he was never ill and couldn't remember if he'd had a doctor. Introducing chemicals into one's systems is a sin. Jeremy watched Paul fill his glass with red wine, hoping it would not be as vinegary as Giselle's snapped assertion. We only drink alpine water, but the wine is Grandola. You will like it. This time the command came from Giselle. Jeremy did not like it. True, it was red. True, it was liquid, and true, it was in a wine glass. But something was missing. Made from beetroot, no alcohol, winked Paul. Slowly, Jeremy swirled the counterfeit liquid around in his glass. He had never bought alcohol-free vegetable wine, and after the first sip, decided his hand would never be the one to snatch a bottle of it from the supermarket shelf. It did, however, help down his little bits in vivid technicolor. Some were hard, some soft, some slipped down easily, and some did not, clinging to his teeth and throat, tonsils, and any other of his accessories they could find. But they were small, and it only took a minute off his life to clear the plate. They all tasted the same. There was no after effects, the plate seemed undamaged, and he was still upright. Giselle bustled out for the main course, while Jeremy decided he would continue today's excitement when he returned home by painting his garage door and then watch it dry. The main course was steaming, as a steamed pudding should. Jeremy thought he was expected to slice and serve, but then realized they each had a white igloo before them. "You like it?" Paul pointed his knife whilst Jeremy resisted the temptation to use his. "It's all inside, and the chicken is bio." Giselle's gush was brimming with goodness. "We steam everything, keeps the vitamins in. And the microbes out," Paul asserted triumphantly. The pudding hissed as Jeremy's fork then gurgled as he carved a door in the igloo. The residents rushed out. More coloured bits, chicken bits, white squares, and a playful sprout rolled out, before, with a culinary burp, a pool of brown liquid released itself to ooze from the entrance and carpet the plate. The coloured bits, the chicken bits, white squares, and the brown liquid all tasted of steam, but the sprout stood proud, smelling of sprout, which was unfortunate. Jeremy hated sprouts. As he slowly dismantled the igloo and guided the residents down his red lane, the sprout waited, snuggling up to a chicken breast, seemingly growing in size and threat. But he considered himself fortunate. Everyone else had at least two, and poor Monique had three, unless, and he shuddered, there were more hiding under the stairs in the igloo. A quick jab of his knife, another burp, and more brown liquid established, to his relief, the green horror was a bachelor or a spinster and the sole resident. It was going to have to go. His timing was perfect, and his flick executed with the precision of a class golfer. The knife connected, the sprout soared off, with just a little draw, bending its arc across the dining room for a perfect flight through the window before, with a bounce on the sill, it vanished into a rhododendron. Unseeing, Monique and Giselle continued munching their conversation, but Paul stared in amazement. Jeremy's excuse was well practiced and well used over many Christmas and sprout-invaded dinners. "Sorry, the knife slipped." The host can't argue, and not one had ever had the audacity to order him to pick it up. Both Jeremy and Monique left part of their igloo. Monique on the excuse of watching her weight, and Jeremy asserting he could just not eat another igloo wall. Cheese passed almost uneventfully. Cheddar is cheddar is cheddar, although the biscuits were a challenge. "Aged oatmeal. You'll like them," said Paul, although this time he did not point the knife, cautious about upsetting someone who was obviously descending his sanity ladder. It would have been easier to eat the plate than the biscuits, but after the sprout incident, Jeremy decided not to attempt a discus throw, and after a few good sucks, managed to force them down to join the igloo. The dessert was small, translucent, oval amoebas, swimming in a light green pond, and they were slippery. Jeremy's spoon could get near, but could not capture the little bastards before capillary action and their natural slime propelled them across the bowl. Monique was also jabbing like mad and becoming more and more flustered. "Singapore semolina. You like it?" This time Paul flapped a spoon. "I can't catch it," said Jeremy. It was not meant as a joke, but Paul and Giselle roared with laughter. The answer was in the biscuits. Their hosts, obviously Singapore semolina veterans, trapped their quarry with the triangular brown things with the orange stripes. So Jeremy, with a biscuit tight between the first finger and thumb of his left hand and his spoon in his right hand, went fishing. He needed the aged oatmeal. The brown thing fell to bits on contact with the green ocean, adding a murky contrast to the green depths. But the amoebas could not swim in a soggy mass, and although they tasted more like chicken than chicken, they did not offend. And with relief, he watched his empty bowl vanish into the kitchen. Our coffee is not real coffee. Giselle smiled the smile of someone who had found the golden fleece, the pot at the end of the rainbow, and had won the national lottery. Made from burnt acorns. You will like it. Sergeant Major Paul was pointing again. Jeremy, watching his fist curl into a ball of annoyance, quickly moved it under the table before it flew, in Paul's direction. It was true. The aroma curling from the cup bore little, in fact no resemblance, to the beans from Brazil, more like something the fire brigade should be attending to. Excuses for not drinking coffee were not in Jeremy's genes, and fighting his immune system, he forced his lips open and slowly sipped. Thoughts of muddy paths, gritty roads, and brown puddles replaced his usual savourings of flavour and taste. He hoped his brain warned his stomach to be prepared for the imminent arrival of a vile liquid from hell. But it had to be drunk. An effort had to be made to avoid falling out with the neighbours after just 1 hour. He had already established they were totally mad. Now he had to check if they were also dangerous. To play golf, Jeremy had asked a loaded question. If the reply was no, but I do fight in cages, he could decide which gun to buy. No sport. Paul was horrified. Strains the muscles. Do you go to the cinema? Monica breathed out as much burnt ash as she politely could. Giselle looked at Paul. Paul looked at Giselle. Air conditioning, full of microbes, replied Giselle. Don't take planes or trains either, added Paul. So they were now living next to a pair of bio-eco health nuts. Jeremy tried to balance their fanaticism with fury, the fury of George, their old neighbour who sprayed his hose over the fence to extinguish Jeremy's bonfire, who ranted when Monique close parked his car and complained every time Jeremy improvised with B.B. King backing on his guitar. We have a video of Paul making the lemonade, pipped Giselle. From planting of the tree to the finished product, Paul added proudly. You'll like it. Death from boredom was looming. His excuse was rotten, but so was the lunch, and also, he had no doubt, was Paul and Giselle's video. Actually, we really must go. Jeremy glanced out of the window. I have to paint my garage door before the rain starts. Monique muttered an excuse that no one could hear, which is exactly what she had intended, and at twice his usual pace, she was hurried from the house by her husband. Bet they'll keep pigs in the back garden, build compost heaps, install a wind generator. Their list of horrors continued to their entrance before, with a final glance, Jeremy shut his door, what he now considered was an asylum across the fence. Monique's scream came from the kitchen. In 4 huge strides, Jeremy was beside her. The wall calendar was a target for her quivering finger. The date, she gasped. This day was ringed with a large red circle. Come on! They raced towards the stairs. It's past midday. It started. We'll do the bed first, and the rest of the furniture later, Jeremy snapped. Snatching his compass from a drawer, he raced after Giselle into the bedroom. Placing the instrument in the centre of the covers, with one on either side, they heaved the heavy bed through 5 carefully measured degrees. Are you sure that is enough? Monique studied the quivering pointer. At 3 o'clock tomorrow morning, the axis of the Earth will be in direct sympathy with our energy path, boosting our health and happiness and well-being. Magnetism is the root of life. She turned a vase of flowers through the same 5 degrees. stating the axis affected flowers as well. Jeremy turned the bedside lights through the 5 degrees, convinced the magnetic core made them shine brighter, and looked out across the back garden at the asylum next door. The idiots were already starting. The back lawn had been dug up, and Paul was planting cabbages. They were living next door to Nutters.